We begin our broadcast with the major pro-life news coming out of Alabama. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signed into law last week the Human Life Protection Act, banning nearly all abortions in the state. This new law makes committing or attempting an abortion a felony in Alabama, unless the abortion is committed, quote, in order to prevent a serious health risk to the unborn child's mother. There are no exceptions for victims of rape or incest. The bill's passage was followed by hysteria from media figures and pro-abortion groups who claimed it would criminalize women. However, the bill specifically states a woman who undergoes an abortion, quote, will not be held criminally culpable or civilly liable for receiving the abortion. President Donald Trump, while not naming Alabama, weighed in on Twitter, calling himself strongly pro-life with the 3 exceptions: rape, incest, and protecting the life of the mother. The Human Life Protection Act is slated to go into effect in 6 months. Joining us now to discuss this news is Bishop Robert Baker of the Diocese of Birmingham, Alabama. He joins us from our EWTN headquarters in Irondale, Alabama. Your Excellency, thank you for being with us.
Great to be with you, Catherine.
This new pro-life law is putting Alabama in the nation's spotlight right now. First off, what is your reaction to the Human Life Protection Act becoming law?
I think it's a great step forward for the pro-life movement throughout the country and world. I'm happy to see the people of Alabama generally supporting this. While there's a lot of opposition shown publicly through the media, I believe the majority of people of Alabama support what happened on May 15th and then that law being signed by Governor Ivey. And I personally endorse the law 100%.
The Human Life Protection Act does not include exceptions for rape and incest. There is debate over this, and we're seeing even from people who identify as pro-life, including the President of the United States, say they do not support a pro-life bill if it does not include exceptions. But Your Excellency, can you clarify, where does the Catholic Church stand on this and the issue of exceptions?
Well, doesn't it make sense that once one acknowledges that life begins at conception, that really there are no exceptions to that reality that is a human life. So up to now, politicians have somewhat compromised on the issue of rape and incest. I laud the Alabama legislators for raising the issue. Why? Because that still is an infant in the womb. So obviously, if you acknowledge life, then you'll support omitting that protection that has been in most laws throughout our country. So it seems extreme, but if you really look at it carefully, it's a very logical conclusion, and one that, of course, is controversial because up to now, nobody but Alabama has done this. So I stand behind the decision and the arguments in favor of not making exceptions for rape or incest.
From what you've seen in the media coverage surrounding this bill, what has been, in your opinion, the most egregious instance of misinformation?
Well, I think people are occasionally misrepresenting this law. They don't even use the title Human Life Protection Act because that's exactly what it is. So they'll just refer to HB 314. And they also will sometimes just make a vague reference to the criminalizing of the act, referring to it as a Class A, Class C felony, Class A for those who perpetrate the act, Class C for those who attempt it, failing to say the punishment only goes to the physician who performs or attempts to perform the act, not the woman or the parents involved.
That's an important clarification. Thank you. Abortion advocates seem to be painting Alabama as the most backwards state because of this law. What's your response to that type of portrayal?
It's misinformation and a false insinuation. I think it's a very enlightened law by very enlightened legislators. And if you read it carefully, the arguments are in there that have been given for years by pro-life advocates that stem from the reality of the rights to life by all people, which are suggested in the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights. So if all have those rights to life, then certainly the unborn have them as well. So, but the document is crafted carefully. I suggest all our listeners and viewers read it because it is clear pro-life thinking, and the arguments that we present commonly are all in this document. It was crafted by people who know the arguments that stem from natural law.
And finally, Your Excellency, the topic of abortion and rape exceptions is an incredibly emotionally charged issue. As a shepherd, what do you want to say to your flock, with your state being in the center of this debate?
Well, I've already written on this to my people in my diocesan paper. First of all, if we criticize politicians rightly for voting pro-abortion, and they should be criticized because they're held to the moral law as all people are, then we should laud the people who take the stand to defend human life, which these legislators of Alabama did. So I laud them. I tell my people, back these people, because they were courageous in making the statement. And also the Governor Ivey. When a politician, a legislator, a leader does right, we should commend them and thank them. So shower them with your letters of approval as I extend my own personal approval for them. And once again, legislators have an even graver moral responsibility to protect life than the average citizen does. So they're held by God morally responsible for their actions. But they're also praised and should be praised by all pro-life people for the kind of actions that we saw here in Alabama by our Senate and House leaders. God bless them, and continue to be of support with your prayers for these noble leaders.
Bishop Robert Baker of the Diocese of Birmingham, Alabama, thank you so much for joining us and for your leadership.
Thank you, Catherine. A joy to be with you.
We continue this conversation now in our D.C. studio with Autumn Christensen, the Policy Director for the Susan B. Anthony List. Thanks for being here, Autumn.
Thank you.
A lot to discuss. First off, what is your reaction to the Human Life Protection Act being signed into law?
Yeah, you know, I think this is an example of Americans just sort of stepping up and saying, look, in my state, we're going to defend unborn children. They have watched the World Trade Center turn pink for late-term abortion. They have heard a governor defending infanticide. They have heard members of Congress in Washington blocking legislation to give health care to babies who survive abortion, and they've just said this is enough, at least in their states. They're going to take action.
Abortion advocates and many in the media are portraying this bill as anti-woman, an attack on women. What's your response to that?
Well, you know, first I always think about all of those unborn baby girls who will never have a chance to grow into womanhood, and nobody seems to want to talk about them. And then you kind of see these images pop up on screens of the male legislators who are stepping up to protect babies. And conveniently omitted is the author of the bill, who's a female member, Terry Collins from Alabama, and the Governor, Kay Ivey, who signed the bill into law, women who know that you can protect women's rights and babies' rights at the same time.
We really have seen a flurry of pro-life legislation these past few weeks. Can you give us a sense of the pro-life movement right now? How pivotal of a time is this?
You know, I think that there's just a lot of energy. Americans want, according to our polling, they want their lawmakers to make laws regarding abortion. They don't want these things decided by courts. So they're looking for opportunities to protect unborn life, and they're responding to the extremism they're seeing in other places. And their lawmakers are responding and saying, hey, before we adjourn, we're going to get some work done to protect babies.
And we have seen over-the-top reaction ranging from Saturday Night Live to other Hollywood figures. What do you make of the hysteria surrounding the pro-life laws?
Yeah, the media centers in California and New York just never cease to stop pushing their abortion agenda, and this time they're using so-called humor and economic techniques to try to bully pro-life Americans. And I think that we know that we won't be derailed from our efforts to protect babies regardless of the bullying that's coming out of Hollywood.
That's right, we will stand strong. Autumn Christensen, Policy Director for the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you.
Thanks.